Welcome to Valley Politics. I'm Terry Christensen. Today we'll meet Derrick Seaver, the new president and CEO of the Silicon Valley organization. That's the group formerly known as the Chamber of Commerce. We'll ask Derrick about his take on his new job and how he sees the SVO functioning after its political meltdown last year. And we'll have questions from Gene Cohen of the South Bay Labor Council and Anil Babar of the California Apartment Association. Later, we'll revisit our 2020 interview with San Jose City Manager Dave Sykes, who is retiring this month. That's what's coming up on Valley Politics. Welcome, everyone, and welcome Derrick Seaver, President and CEO of the Silicon Valley organization. So, Derrick, tell us about the SVO. What's the SVO do? What's the purpose, and what do you do there?
Yeah, absolutely, and thank you, Terry, so much for having us on. The SVO is San Jose's Chamber of Commerce. We are an organization dedicated really to three things: business advocacy and making sure that business has a seat at the table before government; business visibility, allowing our member businesses to meet one another, to network both amongst other businesses as well as with the community at large; and then community development. It's not lost on us that one of our big pieces of lines of business, one of our big operations here, is really helping to make San Jose and our region a better place that people want to locate in, start businesses in, and grow here. So really the short answer is we are the city's largest chamber of commerce, and we have served in that role really since 1886. We're a 135-year-old organization with a lot of background, a lot of history here.
How many current members? Are you growing? Are you shrinking? What's going on?
Yeah, so we are growing from shrinking is probably the best way to say it. So we are back on an upward trajectory, which obviously we're really excited about. The organization has gone through a lot of changes and transition in the last 6 to 8 months, not just at the leadership level, but I also think the value proposition and what we are doing with our members. So right now we have about 750 current SVO members. We are obviously hoping to get that number up in the months ahead. And one of the things that we're really focused on right now is how to grow that number through offering value, not just to our members, but also to our prospective members.
How big's your staff? How many people?
So right now we have 8 staff members on the team here. And again, those folks are shared. So inside the SVO, we have the Chamber of Commerce, which is our traditional line of business. We also have this SVO, the Silicon Valley Organization Foundation, which engages in a lot of that community development piece. We run a leadership program, a Strive program that connects youth to job placement, career trajectories. And so we have staff that supports that. And then we also just recently actually took on an organization, Silicon Valley Forum, SV Forum, which showcases our region, its innovation, its business culture to folks around the country and around the world. And we're excited about that growth as well. So the team here at the SVO is really made up of folks from all those different lines of business. And we're responsible for all that. All of them ultimately report to the foundation board or our overall board of directors.
And what's your funding? Is it membership dues?
Yeah, so our funding really comes from 3 sources. So primarily, we are a membership-based organization. So our funding comes from the dues that our members pay to join, and then benefits that they derive from being members come from those dues without any additional money coming in. So it is very much our primary form of revenue. We also run the foundation, again, is a source of revenue for the organization because we do manage it. That is part of what we do. Our community development work is a piece of that pie. And then third, and this has obviously been put on hold with COVID, but we have events. We run community-based events that both support our members, but also the community at large. And those events generate revenue through sponsorships and other things. And we're hoping to bring a lot of those back online now that we seem to be turning the corner on the pandemic.
Yeah. So what prepared you for this job? What's your background that got you ready to do this, take on this task?
Yeah, so I'll be honest with you, Terry. I don't get that question a lot, and I want to say up front in that question that part of why I don't get that question up front, I think, is one of the things that makes our city and our region so great. I think this is a place of immediate impact where you can, come in and do good work and people give you that seat at the table. And so I haven't answered that a lot, but I've had a kind of an interesting career trajectory. I've sat at what I would consider kind of all four corners of the government and the advocacy process. I've been an elected official at one point in my native state of Ohio. I was a member of the state General Assembly for 6 years. I ran my own business. I'm sorry.
I'm sorry to interrupt. You were elected when you were 18 years old, right?
I was elected when I was 18. So in 2000, I served in that role till 2006. And then I started my own consulting business where I ran campaigns, was involved in the advocacy space for a number of years before I came to the SVO and started my work here. This is my second time at the SVO. I spent 5 years in the organization, ultimately as executive vice president. And then in the middle of that, I also had the great pleasure of being Supervisor Ellenberg's chief of staff. So I've been a consultant and a lobbyist. I've been elected. I've worked for an elected official. And now I am in the trade association space. So I've kind of seen the mold of that ecosystem.
So a lot of your background is in politics. You were elected to the Ohio State Legislature as a Democrat.
I was.
Switched to a Republican.
I did. Yep.
I expect the consulting you did was for Republican or nonpartisan.
No, and actually I've done this twice now. I switched. I was only a Republican for a short period of time. I am a registered Democrat now, and I did switch back, frankly, during a lot of the discussion around the Tea Party, which was kind of a direction that I didn't really had signed up for. And what I would say is, I think a lot of that is indicative of the fact that I do consider myself a fairly moderate person politically, and always have been. But a lot of my work in the private sector was actually on behalf of the business community. I worked for a number of clients, but some of them were the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, the National Business Council, and others, working predominantly on education and trade policy at the time. So I spent a good deal of my career both as in the private sector and in the nonprofit world working for the private sector.
I like that when you started answering this question about what prepared you, that you talked about the kind of place this is, and that new people can come here and enter into the political realm, the government realm pretty readily. It's a pretty open place, and you're a good example of that. And in a pretty short period of time, you've risen to one of the most important positions in the private sector in the Valley. So it's a very good thing about this place, and it's nice to have you as part of it.
Thank you.
I want to kind of go back to where the SVO fits in the big picture of representing business in the Valley, because we have the Silicon Valley Leadership Group, as you know, that represents the really big players in the region and takes on a more regional perspective. Smaller cities seem to all have their own chambers of commerce, and then additionally, there are multiple ethnic and neighborhood business associations that represent their sectors. So what's the place of the SVO in all this?
Yeah, no, I think that's a great question, Terry. It's for us, I think, a couple points there. One is I think there's been a tendency at different points in our organization's past to really see ourselves as competitors in that space, or kind of fighting over the limited resources that might exist. I think the true place for us to be is really as partners and collaborators on that, understanding really the good work that a lot of those organizations are doing, either in their local neighborhoods, or you use the example of the Silicon Valley Leadership Group, who does incredible work representing our region, both in front of the state and federal governments, but also here regionally. So I think the first thing I would say to that is our role is as a partner and a collaborator. The second thing I would say to that is our unique value proposition as a regional chamber is that we represent a broad cross-section of businesses. So all of those organizations that you listed do tremendous work that we need to partner on, but each one of those organizations to some extent is exclusive, either to business sectors or regionally or neighborhood exclusive. One of the great value propositions of chambers, not just here, but everywhere, is that we represent businesses of all shapes and sizes, different backgrounds. And I think that is part of our unique value proposition. And we need to highlight that. And I think that also gives us kind of a high bar of responsibility to make sure that we are keeping our focus on a few key areas. That's one of the things that we want to focus on. And also a high bar of responsibility to make sure all those voices are heard inside our organization. And those are things that we do need to improve on as a chamber.
Okay, thanks. So now we have a guest question, and this is from Anil Babar of the California Apartment Association. The Apartment Association is one of the groups that left the SVO last year following the election controversy, which we're going to talk about in a little while. But meanwhile, here's Anil's question.
Okay.
Hi, Derek. My question today is about the Chamber's advocacy on business issues. As we emerge from this pandemic that has had a disastrous impact on many businesses, such as restaurants and housing providers, how does the Chamber plan to engage elected officials in supporting the recovery of these businesses? Thanks.
So thank you, Anil, for the question, and I look forward to working with you in this new role. It's a great question. The Chamber, I think, has a couple of unique roles to play in this space. The first is I think we need to be the organization that really leads on highlighting and sharing information amongst members about a lot of the innovation and changes that occurred in the last year. Really what we just experienced was 10 years of economic development sandwiched into one. And there's been a lot of talk and there's been a lot of press about all this, the technological innovations, many of which produced here in Silicon Valley, that help make that possible. But I think the story of innovation that we can really tell is the story of the small business owners, the folks that changed their retail, their restaurant establishments, really, very, very quickly in a way to respond to that environment and help them network and get together to really share those things, because a lot of that innovation is going to keep going. It's not going to end, at the pandemic. And the second thing I would say is I think we need to be a very loud and forceful voice for the fact that all of these different recovery efforts that the city is involved in, the county is involved in, that many of our partner organizations are involved in, many that you mentioned, we need to be a loud and forceful voice to say that the recovery efforts you're involved in need to be shared by everybody. They need to be so that when we talk about these numbers that we're now seeing as we turn the corner of the pandemic, California's numbers look great. Our GDP numbers are high. Our employment numbers just today look very strong. But we need to make sure that that is being shared by the folks that are on the street level in our community that might not be in the larger business community. And I think what we bring to the table as the Chamber is both hearing that and hearing what those folks need, and then advocating for that at the appropriate levels of government. Because a lot of times in these processes, some of the larger folks suck the air out of the room. And I think we all know that in this community, what makes our business community so strong is the relationship with the people of this city. And that is usually an interaction that takes place at that ground level. And we need to respect that and put that front and center.
How does the Chamber interact with some of those smaller business associations, like the East Santa Clara Street Business Association or Alum Rock or Willow Glen?
Yeah, well, on one level, we share some of the same members, and so we do interact with them on that way. But I'll be honest with you, Terry, there's a lot of work that we need to do internally about how we build those relationships out. And the short answer to that is, I think in recent history, we have not done a good enough job of collaborating with those folks around the city. And again, for me, that's a lot about hearing the issues that they're dealing with, and then sharing not only just ways that we can help them solve those, but having them share with us ways that some of our members and what we're hearing from them can help solve theirs. This is something, again, we've missed that a little bit, and we really do need to get that back, because they are so much closer in so many ways to what's going on with the members that we do share.
I know you've just come on as CEO, but what was the SVO doing to help businesses and its members during the pandemic?
Yeah, I think if you talk, yeah, sorry.
So I said, which we hope is over.
Yeah, which we do hope is over, right? And there might be, we hope to not have too many bumps going ahead.
Yeah.
And obviously, what a good time to say, celebration, right? On Tuesday, the state's reopening. It's a great week to talk about this. I think if you asked our members, and I've asked a number of them, and I've heard a lot about this. I think if you asked our members, what they would say is, we provided, I think, two really critical pieces of help during the pandemic. The first was information, right? I mean, so we had, especially at the beginning, directives coming out of the county, directives coming out of Sacramento, problematic communication coming from the federal government. You had a lot of things going on, and there were a lot of moving parts. And as I think any business owner will tell you, consistency and clarity are everything. And for a short period of time, that was lacking. What we really did, and I want to certainly compliment the team that was here when I was not, we were really a source to translate that information, to disseminate it, to get it into folks' hands so that they could navigate what were very troubled waters right at the point. So I think that's the first thing. The second thing is, as soon as the county especially took on a mitigation first strategy at the beginning of last summer and then getting into the middle of the summer, we were an advocate and still remain so an advocate for a safe and quick reopening. And I think that had immediate impact. I think there were sectors of the economy that were able to demonstrate that they were operating safely, that they were operating in a way that could get more open than what was there. And I think some of those decisions, again, none of these decisions were made because of lobbying. All these decisions were made because of public health. But I also think we had a role to play and did play in demonstrating to the public health authorities that we had members that could be open safely. And I think they listened to a lot of that. And I know that that made a real difference for a lot of folks. And I've heard truly nothing but positive things about what was done in the last year. And I think we're now, this week, we're going to start to see the results of that, because the way California and the county were able to collaboratively do that together is going to bring us out of the backside of this, I think, stronger than a lot of our neighbors.
Okay. So Derrick, you're coming in as CEO of the SVO after a pretty thorough meltdown of the organization during the 2020 election campaign, following the posting of an inflammatory racist image in a campaign hit piece. And that wasn't the first allegation of racism and generally unfair assertions in campaign materials funded by the SVO Political Action Committee. Subsequently, your predecessor resigned, and others in leadership positions at the SVO have now gone. Several major corporations and others resigned from the SVO. First of all, are any coming back? And secondly, what changes do you foresee in the political action of the organization?
Yeah, thank you for that question, Terry. And I think that's, it's a really important topic for us to address. I first want to say a couple of things about what happened last fall, because I think it's important to say. On behalf of the SVO and our leadership, I want to sincerely and deeply apologize that ever happened. The actions that were taken last fall and some of the actions that happened before it were unacceptable, and they should never be repeated. Period. End of sentence. I think it's important to say that. And for those people in our community who are hurt by that, I want to offer my sincere apology. But I come to this work really with the idea that apologies are action, and the way that we're truly going to apologize for this is not words, but really taking those demonstrable steps towards being a better organization. And so for us, that looks like a couple of different things. The short answer to your question, Terry, is some of those members are coming back. We're excited about that. We want to have them back. But I think the way that we get them back in perpetuity and really build on that is that we get very serious and very intentional about making sure that as an organization, we are representing the full spectrum of business community. And I think that was one of the things that was lost during the political back and forth that went on. And so for me, what that means is making sure that our small and medium-sized business community in different parts of the city are at the table, that they have a viable opportunity to have their voice brought into this organization. And I think that's because the way that we really fix this problem going forward is we have the right people in the room to make decisions that are different and better than what happened before. The other thing I would say to that is we need a level of accountability in this organization that really goes through the top. And for me, what that means is I plan on taking a far more active role in our advocacy campaigns to make sure that what is going out really does reflect the values of this organization and the face that we want to put out. What I've really shared with the board a lot is that as an organization, I don't think our why was ever the problem. The why of we think business needs a voice at the table, that entrepreneurship is a path to equity, that business needs to be represented. I think that's strong. I want to lean into that. I think our how was all messed up, right? We had gotten too tilted towards a certain way of thinking. We got too focused on politics as a center of our advocacy. And I really want to get us back to the kind of the bread and butter, the nuts and bolts of what chambers do. And like I said, where that starts for me is making sure we have a diverse membership role that also has a really sizable voice in the decision-making of the organization.
So you've said in other interviews that the SVO should not be in the political candidate business. And as I understand it, the SVO Political Action Committee has been disbanded. Well, that PAC spent $500,000 on 2 city council races. That's a lot of, well, it's a form of advocacy for the organization. But if you don't have a PAC, if you're not going to be in the candidate business, what's your political role? Is it strictly lobbying?
Yeah. Yes. I mean, so I'd say a couple of things to that. I would reinforce that statement. I don't believe that the SVO should be in the candidate business going forward. And the big reason why I believe that is because I believe that the line in this community between business and labor, where we have a business caucus and a labor caucus and these other things. I think that's an outdated way of thinking. I think at any given council meeting, at any given committee meeting, I think amongst staff, you will have members of this city council that will be pro-business or anti-business, however we want to case it, depending on the issue that's in front of them. And I think as an organization, we need deep, strategic, meaningful partnerships with all of them. I think we have a couple of roles to play at the advocacy table as a primary function of what we do. One is, again, lobbying through those relationships that are being built. The second thing I would say is there is probably space in this organization at a later date. There's no plan to do this now, to have either a political action committee or an advocacy committee that focuses on ballot measures. When things are on the ballot, that's obviously a critical piece of California government and how we govern ourselves here. And I think business does need a seat at that table. But again, I think we need to, when that day comes, run those campaigns with a lot more decency and inclusivity than has been there in the past. And I think, again, that does not include endorsing candidates for office. And we have partner chambers, in other major cities, one of which is in San Francisco, who has exactly the same bent. And they believe they can make those partnerships with every elected official in the area. And I certainly believe that. And I don't have any reason to believe that that's not going to be the right way of thinking.
I suspect some of your members will decide to do an independent PAC, independent from the chamber, to advocate their point of view. There's a lot of commitment on some of those folks. Well, you recently served as Chief of Staff for Santa Clara County Supervisor Susan Ellenberg, as you mentioned. Our final guest question is related to that service, and this is Jean Cohen of the South Bay Labor Council. Here's Jean with her question.
Hi, Derrick. My question is, what 3 things did you learn while you were working in Santa Clara County, and how will you apply them in your new job? Thanks.
Excellent. First of all, Jean, good to hear from you, and I really look forward to working with you as well. I think we've got a lot of room to build a good partnership going forward. And thanks for the question. I would say, so first of all, I had a wonderful time working for Supervisor Ellenberg. She's a great leader, and she has a great team. And I really, as much as I'm excited about this work, I will miss them. Really, the 3 things that I would say, the first is the intersectionality of our local government. I think, we live in a kind of a unique place here. Unlike San Francisco, we don't get to be a city-county government where everything is together. So watching the county, which had a role to play, not just in public health, but in so many different areas, how they interacted with the city of San Jose and then the other cities inside of Santa Clara County. I learned a lot through that process. And one of the main lessons was, every action has an equal and opposite reaction, right? So something that San Jose does might trickle to the county, vice versa, and throughout the cities in the area. So that's going to be a key lesson for me on this, in this role. The second thing that I would learn, that I would say that I learned was, I think the county board of supervisors especially, but the staff as well, have a very collaborative spirit in Santa Clara County. There, the 5 supervisors really seem to like one another. They get along. I think policymaking is done on a collaborative level. I learned a lot from that, and I hope that is something that we can organizationally kind of put out there, and hope to see more of that. I think at all levels of government. And I learned from all 5 of them, not just Supervisor Elmer. I learned from all 5 of them in a way to really operate in that system. And then the last thing I would say is, as a manager, because part of the chief of staff role and the role of CEO here is managing people. I probably learned 10 years of knowledge going through COVID as a manager of that team, and transitioning folks out of the office, all that came with that. And then I was also a part at the very end before my successor took over, in helping to get the groundwork laid to bring folks back. And so I learned such a great deal from my entire team, and really just as a manager through that process, that I certainly hope will make me better. And Terry, in a year you can ask my team if that's true, but I certainly think I was made better by that.
Well, it was an intense time, so I'm sure there was a lot to learn.
Yeah.
Taking us back to the SVO, will you consider changing the name back to the Chamber of Commerce?
Yeah, I appreciate the Freudian slip on that, Terry. That was good. Yes. Yeah, we are going to consider that. And when I say that, I don't want to be even dismissive of that answer. We're going to strongly consider that. I would tell you, and I know I'm not speaking out of turn, the vast majority of not just chamber members, but also community members that I have spoken to, are supportive of a name change. And I think we need to respect that. I also think being the San Jose or the San Jose Silicon Valley Chamber is really good for our brand. And I'm really heartened by the pride that people show in the Chamber brand itself, but also the brand of San Jose and making sure that San Jose is here. So again, I think we have to respect that, and we are respecting that. And I will tell you, our board is already talking about that. So that's a strong consideration.
My friend, the late Bob Keeve, who was a big Chamber supporter, would be very happy to hear that.
Yeah. Yep.
Another issue the city's thinking about is changing the form of government. There's a charter revision commission underway now, as you know. The Chamber in the past has supported a shift to the strong mayor. Are you gonna, I'm sorry, the SVO in the past
It's all right.
supported a shift to the strong mayor form of government. Would you continue that support and continue to push for that?
Yeah, we haven't considered that policy under its current framework. But what I would tell you generally, I think there will be a general bent inside the SVO towards being supportive of that. I think if you look at the cities around the country that have a strong mayor government, there are numerous advantages to that from a city building and growth and development standpoint that I think will always be attractive to an organization like the SVO. And also, I think there's a lot of conversation just at a broader scale about the place that San Jose is in now versus where it was at when a lot of our rules and policies were put together. And as one of the largest cities in the nation, and certainly the largest city in Northern California, are we in a place where a strong mayor form of government is going to get us in a firmer and better government place? So even though I don't have a formal answer on that organizationally, I would say I think there will always be a largely favorable bent towards that inside our organization.
Derrick, we have just a few seconds left, but I want to give you a chance to pitch the leadership program that the Chamber does. Tell us what that's about.
Yeah, absolutely. So our Leadership San Jose program, which we hope to get rolling again in September, is a chance for folks who are either new to their businesses or new to the community to come in and see all the different pieces that make San Jose work: our public safety, our government, our private sector, our nonprofit sector. And I'll tell you, one of the greatest, and we talked about this earlier, benefits that I see in the program is the fact that it's intersectional. A lot of different people, diverse backgrounds, and we hope to have about 30 people in our class this year. We'd love to have you join it.
And that's our time for today. Derrick Seaver, thanks very much for being with us. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me. Thank you, Terry.
All right.
We're out. Sweet.
Before we close, we want to revisit our 2020 interview with San Jose City Manager Dave Sykes, who's retiring this month. His perspective on shifting power from the manager to the mayor may surprise you. Here's Dave. There's another idea kind of kicking around lately about changing San Jose's form of government from council manager, as it now is, or mayor council management. It's a little bit of a hybrid right now.
It is, yeah.
To a strong mayor form of government. How do you feel about that? How would you feel about being the chief administrative officer in a strong mayor system?
Yeah, it's interesting. Well, I think my feelings are actually irrelevant, and because it certainly wouldn't be about me, and it's not even about the city manager. I think the way I look at it is, whatever is best for our community and our organization, I'm going to be supportive of. It's interesting. I do get asked, hey, that would be a shift of kind of power from the manager to the mayor. And that's not at all what it would be. It is more of a shift from the council to the mayor. Right now, as you know, I work for all 11.
Yeah.
And under that scenario, I might only work for the mayor as well as some of the department heads. And so I think the question to be asked is really kind of, where does that put the council and where does that put the community that the council represents, I think, are the important questions that need to be asked.
Absolutely. We have about 30 seconds left, Dave. Make the case for working for city government. Why should somebody be interested in that?
Yeah, that's an easy case to make.
Okay.
Great opportunity. We talked about all the vacancies. So you can come in, develop your career, and have a really good career. We have amazing people working there, and you get to do great work and learn from great people. And I think probably for me, the most important thing, it's a daily opportunity to make a difference in people's lives, a tangible difference in people's lives. And there is probably nothing more rewarding than being able to do that for a city like San Jose.
Well said. Thank you very much, Dave Sykes.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for having me.
We'll be back next month in our CreateTV studio for the first time in a year and a half. I'll actually have to dig my suits and ties out of storage. Meanwhile, you can follow us on Facebook, and you can catch up on all our previous shows on our website at createtvsj.org or on YouTube by searching for CreateTV San Jose. And now, that's all, folks. Thanks for watching.